think we have a quorum, so we'll call the meeting to order. Can I ask you, Dawn, if you would?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find your agenda so
Okay.
I can go off of that one.
And then we'll do some introductions and talk about what we're gonna do tonight.
Is the Wi-Fi password the same as all the other?
I think so, yeah. Are you not getting on?
No, here it's different.
Oh,
It's up
Oh,
on the
it's right
wall
there.
One, two, three.
Are you all set, Dawn?
I'm almost there, sorry.
That's okay,
I didn't
take
go
your
the
time.
first time and then now.
I thought you were getting it for next year. You could have gotten better credit.
Here we go.
Okay, so I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:03, and Dawn has agreed to be the minute taker. And because this is an official meeting of the board, we always first just start by asking if there's any public comment. Hi, Sue. So if there is none, what I'd like to do is just start by doing some introductions, because there are some folks that are new joining us tonight, and then just go over our agenda for the evening. And I'll start by saying that I'm Krista Sorigo, and I'm the chair of this committee representing the MAUSD board. And I'm really excited to be undertaking this work with everyone.
Yes, I'm Liz Sayre from Bristol.
Patrick Green, Superintendent, and from Lincoln.
I'm Sue Wood, I'm from Lincoln.
I'm Andrew Morton on the board from New Haven.
I'm Kristen Andrews
I'm
Lincoln.
sorry. I'm Bella. Mount Abe student.
Oh yeah, I'm a Mount Abe student.
I'm Karen Norwood. I am a Mount Abe social studies teacher.
I'm Dawn Griswold. I'm the board chair of the new SD board and a resident in Moncton.
I'm Sally Burrell and I live in Bristol.
I'm Mary Simmons and I live in Lincoln.
And Sue, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Sue McCormick. I'm beaming in from Essex Junction, and I'm happy to be here with you. There's some really awful sickness in my home, and I think I might be getting it, and I really didn't want to come and spread it around, so I'm glad. Thank you for accommodating me to be with you in this way.
I'm glad it worked out for you to at least connect with us like that. So what we hope to do today is look at the agenda for our workshop on March 16th. And after that, talk about what we started last time, which was a list of groups of folks that we think are important to try to bring in to this workshop and this overall community engagement initiative. That piece is one of the reasons why Bella and Karen are here. So I attended the Mount Abe Community Council meeting last Thursday, just sort of spontaneously heard about it at a board meeting 2 days before and thought I would pop in. And the community council's been looking to connect with the board, and this group's been talking about how to engage students, and so I thought, well, cool, I'll go and talk to them a little bit about the work of this group and this workshop we have planned and how we might get students on board. And as I was talking about it, I said, maybe you guys want to come to our meeting. And so here they are, and I'm really grateful because it's a late night to come out, and but I'm glad you're here.
Totally. We're looking forward to see how we can help bring student voice.
Awesome, great. So anyway, I guess as I'm thinking about it, Sue, do you want to start with agenda and then do our activity around inviting folks? Does that still seem like it makes the most sense?
Yes, I think that's a great order to do things in.
Okay, so Patrick is going to, if you can pull up the agenda so we can all look at it together. And it was linked to this meeting agenda, so hopefully you had a chance to look at it. Yep.
Did you do minutes and I missed it, or did you
Oh,
not do minutes?
No, I did not. You're
Okay.
right. Sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
First, we need to the board members need to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was on January 15th. So if I could get a motion to approve the
So
minutes.
moved.
Okay, so Andrew, and a second. And Liz.
Yes.
And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Alright.
I think we're good,
Thank you.
thanks. Okay, so, and I don't think we looked at this at our I think this was,
Chair.
Sue, you shared this with me after our last meeting, am I right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so,
So this agenda incorporated some of the conversation that happened at the last meeting and was a follow-up for you all to kind of consider tonight.
and one of the things we talked about at our last meeting was, how do we describe what it is we're hoping to do on the 16th in a way that's compelling enough that people understand what the goals are and want to participate. And so I think it would be great if we looked together at the purpose of this initiative and also the goals to see if that helps us to articulate that to folks. And then when we get into the part of looking at our contact list, Sue's come up with a great activity that we can go through to sort of help us practice how we will say to folks, here's what we're doing, because I know I still find myself stumbling on it a little bit, but here's what we're doing and here's why we think it's important. We'd like your voice at the table.
Just a little clarification, so when we're putting that out, it's for bringing together the coalition to then do it, or it's to, in general, the whole package? Are we inviting people to the whole package, or just to come to this group and come to the workshop? What,
Yeah, that's a
is
good
it,
question.
are we selling the workshop, or are we selling the whole engagement initiative for a year? I think that's important to know.
I'm struggling to separate the two because the workshop is, I think, intended to prepare folks to engage in the work that is the bigger picture. So in a way to talk about, this is sort of the direction we're going. And this workshop is to help sort of get a group of folks together and trained to be able to engage in that work to get us where we're going.
Right. It's like the working group that's gonna help understand what's going on and help create it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what I was just wondering, is this the purpose of that workshop day, or is it the purpose of the whole thing?
So this is Sue, maybe I'll chime in here a little bit. I think that the workshop is an opportunity for interested people to learn more and hopefully want to stay involved. And I think what we'll do at the end of the workshop is give people a whole range of ways that they can stay involved, from joining the planning team to really plan whatever activities you all decide on, to maybe being trained to facilitate some of those activities, to just helping invite people to participate. So I think when you're inviting people to the workshop, you can let them know that at the end of that day, overall,
You're cutting in and out a little bit.
okay. So it seems like I'm having a little trouble with my internet connection, so if that happens again, let me know and we'll just switch to a phone call
That sounds
So that-
great.
that you can hear, okay?
Did Sue, with the invite, was a phone number included? Oh, actually, no, it wouldn't have been, because you'd be calling in to here probably.
Right, but there might be a setting, there's a setting where I can stop the video,
Okay,
and that will probably make it work. So if it happens again, let me know, and I'll stop the video, and then we'll just be on audio, which should
Okay.
work fine.
that
Okay.
sounds great. So what I think I heard was that, we're going to be, I think it makes sense. I was seeing it, but I'd like to hear what other people think too, but I was seeing it as this is like providing the framework for folks of what we hope to do overall in the long term. But the workshop is that first step to kind of build that coalition of people to help us do it, recognizing that in the past, just relying on a small group of board members it's been really hard and not necessarily that challenging, or it has been very challenging. And I think Sue added number 4 in the goals kind of to help frame that as well.
That's
Right. So just to clarify, so the overall purpose is really to make sure you're a fairly new district, you have some big decisions coming up. And so the overall purpose of the work is just to make sure that people in your community have a meaningful voice in decisions that are being made. And then the goals of the work, the overall work that we're talking about doing over this next year is really to, have, create ways to build trust and relationships between the board and other people in the community, and then also to gather some input from the community about significant decisions facing the district. In talking with this small planning group so far, people were really excited about this also being an opportunity for students to participate in the civic life of the community. And then at the most recent meeting we had, the one before this one, what I really heard in the room was people saying, we also don't want this just to end in a year. We want this work to really help us establish a foundation for ongoing engagement. So I think those are the 4 goals for the overall initiative. And why don't we just pause there and make sure those are making sense to everybody?
Is there a hard copy of this anywhere? It's okay that there
I have
isn't.
2.
Do you? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
We can make copies too, or I
Yep.
can print
Great.
one as well.
Thank you.
Just disregard, I think I might have a note or 2 on there, Sue.
Want to trade?
You want me to
I
print
think
it
I have a
for you,
note
please?
note on this one also.
Okay, no worries. I love your notes.
Does anyone else want a hard copy that didn't bring? Would you guys like?
Right. Let me,
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Krista, you okay with your notes being
Yep,
reproduced?
yep.
I think it helps me because originally I was thinking of who would I invite now to come to this, who would be interested in being part of the coalition to help this happen.
Right.
And now I see in the workshop, I mean, inviting to the workshop, it doesn't have to be just people who are gonna be the ones who create the thing. It could be anyone who's really interested in the process in any part. So that just helps me know who to think about inviting, like whether someone is gonna, be boots on the ground creating or just wanting a chance to have input.
Mm.
So that was why I was wanting to distinguish, just,
Yeah.
I don't know if
And
that
I
makes
see
sense.
this as just, we're inviting people to be tentacles into the community, right? Like, this is just the beginning. It's not like come in and express your opinions and that's what we're doing, right? This is the beginning of a process. We're
Right.
learning how to
Yes.
start this process.
Yeah,
Which
that,
is-
yeah.
That
Which-
seemed really, it was not a thing to come and share your opinions, it's here
Right.
to learn.
Exactly.
How to
So that we
facilitate.
can
Yes.
facilitate people giving
Yeah.
their opinions. So it's not like just telling everyone, hey, if you wanna have some input, come to this meeting.
Right.
No.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
Your
think,
original.
thank you. I think that's a clear, we need to probably make that distinction clear. And I don't know, Sue, if you have thoughts on how, because we may still have folks, there's a lot going on that people probably wanna talk about. So how we sort of balance people's desire to engage with the fact that this is really kind of a convening of a planning group.
Yeah.
You've got it. I don't know, did we
Right.
lose you, Sue?
Yeah, I think
Oh, great.
my connection got a little unstable, so I didn't hear all of that, but I think what you're saying is very important, that we wanna make a distinction, that this workshop is a learning opportunity and an opportunity to help participate in and shape this process. But that it's not, the purpose of the workshop is not to gather input, even though we will gather some input during the workshop. But the input we gather during the workshop is gonna be able to shape what are the topics people wanna talk about, what are some of the things that they're hearing that they think would work well in your community, we're gonna do a little asset mapping activity where people can talk about how people in their community communicate with each other, and just to kind of help you all in your planning. So it's really about helping shape and drive some of the work that happens over the next year. And also for people who say there are municipal leaders and other people in leadership positions, it's going to be information that isn't just relevant for school districts, it's relevant for any time you want to bring the community together to talk about a whole range of issues. And so hopefully it's a set of skills that people are gonna be exposed to, and concepts that will be useful in a lot of different ways.
Can I ask 2 more questions? And
Yep.
you can say, like, we'll be talking about this later, but 2 things I was thinking about was, one, I think it's really exciting because we are making a statement that there's an opening in the administration, and that to have this reciprocal feedback,
Yeah.
right? So we are making that statement.
Yeah.
So I can believe in that when I
Yeah.
am recruiting people.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, the bond is going to be the elephant in the room, I
Yep.
would imagine. So how we talk about that.
Are you able to hear those comments that Mary made?
Yes.
Okay.
I am, and Patrick, I turned off my video, but I can still see, so I'm looking at you right now. Hi. So if you turn the computer towards the people talking, that's awesome.
I was thinking about that same thing, Mary, because I know that some of us know that there are a few issues that have come up at Mount Abe structurally recently. So it's continuing to be a big pressure point. And I think we at the board really feel like there's some action that needs to happen. And we also feel really, I think this group also feels really committed to this work. And so it's going to be interesting to navigate. Sue?
Right, and whenever you're doing this work, it's happening in a community where lots of other stuff is happening, right? So it's never gonna be the ideal time. There's always going to be pressing things that you wish this work had happened a year ago. So that's just the nature of trying to engage with the community in a thoughtful way. And so one of the reasons the workshop is important is it's an opportunity, if you are able to get a diverse group of people in the room, for people with different perspectives to hear about the issues that are important. So the board probably has a set of issues that are really on their radar, and then there's other people in the community that may care about different things. And so just getting a sense of what people would want to engage around is going to be really helpful, because it's going to ensure that when you go out to talk with the community, you're talking about things that matter to people.
And that's where it gets blurry, it seems to me, around gathering information and sharing, and developing a process to develop plans and to share information. It just gets blurry. And I think we're just gonna have to rest easy with that.
And I do think part of this is, historically, attempts at the bond were focused solely on one building and about sort of addressing deficits, rather than really thinking about something broader than one building, thinking about a school system, thinking about what is it we're attempting to achieve within the school system, how do we utilize the facilities to best meet that need, and then what are the needs of the facilities to accommodate that. So I think it takes a more comprehensive approach to facilities needs in a much more community engaging kind of way, that hopefully ultimately gets us to a place where we have some clarity on what is it we can support as a community to make improvements to that facility, possibly some others that are in alignment with where we want to go. If nothing else, it's a different way to approach a similar situation in the hopes of a different outcome.
And Patrick, this is Sue. I think one of the benefits of that more holistic approach is that you don't just get people coming to the table who have that very narrow concern. And you get people with a range of concerns that can benefit from listening to each other. And as you said, it's a more asset-based approach, and so people can not just be talking about how to solve a problem, but they can also be talking about what they want to see. And so it can be kind of a combination of those things.
And I personally am as excited about the opportunity to talk about some different approaches and different ways we might be able to utilize our facilities and what that can mean for opportunities for students, as I am about what are some of the structural changes like that we're going to be making to the school. Like that becomes the means to the end and not the end itself, which is sort of the approach we've been taking in the past, that the end was get a bond to fix the high school. Now maybe that's a means towards something larger, which I think is exciting. And you know, as we face fewer and fewer students and we have the same square footage, you know, that creates challenges in terms of an affordability and sustainability perspective, but also opportunity in what we do with that space and how we organize ourselves. And all of that kind of combined with the fact that we're now a unified district and we have options available to us we've never had before, it's a great time to have conversations about where we want to be and how we might get there.
Yeah. So Krista, if it's okay, maybe we could just kind of walk through this agenda, because I think that might help people have a little more clarity about what the workshop is about and how that ties to this kind of larger vision of the work.
Yep. That sounds great.
Okay. So if it's okay, I'll just kind of take the lead on walking through this, and I shared this with Krista, and we talked about it a little, and so we'll, I think the most important thing is to have clarity about the purpose of the workshop and the goals. And once we have that, we can make all kinds of different decisions about the agenda. So I just want to make sure everybody is clear about the goals and thinks these are the right goals. And so again, the purpose of this particular workshop is really to begin to build your planning team and make it more diverse and create a group of people that can really help guide and implement the activities that you're going to be embarking on over the year. And also during that process, evaluating how it's going, right? And so the other objective of the objectives are to give people kind of a shared understanding about principles and best practices. What does it look like when engagement is done well? What are some of the possibilities when that happens? So we'll talk about that. We'll give people a chance to talk about what's happening in the district that they think is important, that they think other people might want to be talking about. And that will help you all get a list of topics to consider as we move forward. The third objective really is to do some kind of asset mapping, to think about all of the towns and schools individually and what's the infrastructure that you already have for communicating with people. Where do people hang out in these different places, so that later on when you start to flesh out your activities, we'll have this to come back to make it easier to figure out where you want to go and how you want to make sure people know about your efforts. And then finally, as we discussed earlier, at the end of the workshop, we're going to encourage people to stay engaged, and we'll try to give them a very wide range of options. So people who are really jazzed up can join the planning team and be very engaged. People who are very interested but aren't ready to make that kind of commitment, maybe they'll say, I want to, if you're gonna go out and talk to the community, I would like to help spread the word. Maybe people would like to be trained to be facilitators, which should be happening in the fall. So there's a whole bunch of ways that people might be able to help out. Maybe
We lost you for a second there, Sue.
So why don't we
There you go.
pause there, just having looked at the purpose and the objectives, and see if these are clear to people and make sense before we talk about the actual agenda.
Does everybody feel pretty good about what's here? I'm getting nods and thumbs, so.
Okay, great. Patrick, I'm looking at the ceiling a little bit, so if you were able to make a little, oh, that's so much better, thank you so much. So helpful to see everyone's faces. Okay, so let's just do a quick walk through the agenda. So this is designed to be very interactive. We're designing this with the thought that there are going to be students in the room. So we'll try to do things in a lot of different ways. And so at the beginning, we would set the stage, we would talk about the initiative, and this is where we really get clarity about, here's this year-long initiative, here's what this workshop is about, here's the role of people that are helping with this, again, because it is easy to get confused about, am I here to just give my input, or am I here for other reasons? The other thing we do at the beginning is some kind of really kind of interactive icebreaker, just so people can, get to know each other and do something that's getting people moving around and kind of getting some energy in the room. And getting people to know each other, because what I found is, when people are in relationship with each other and enjoying each other's company, it really makes them want to come back and be part of things. So that's important. And then we would go into an opening conversation about education. And this is where I want to go back to what Patrick was talking about. This is really an opportunity for people to maybe share their own experiences from when they were a student, do a little bit of forward looking, as the world is changing, what do we think students need to know and be able to do, and talk a little bit about what's happening in the district so that people can experience an authentic conversation with give and take, with people with different perspectives sharing their views, so that when we're talking about engagement, people actually know what we're talking about, right? We're not necessarily talking about a traditional board meeting or anything like that. It's a different kind of interaction. So we want to give people experience with that.
Can I ask a question about that section?
Sure.
So do you imagine that there would be like any background information provided or themes provided, or would it all be generated in the moment with the participants?
I do think it would be good to provide some background information, and that's a detail that we can talk about.
Yep.
But we may want to provide a little bit of information about some of the current thinking about where the future of learning is going. We may want to provide just a little bit of information about the district, how many schools, how many students, some of those things. And then we might want to look at some themes from past work, like the strategic planning work, some of the five town forums work, and see if there's any themes in there that we want to ask people to react to, ask them what rings true for them, what's missing. So those are details that we can, work out as we're preparing for the conversation. But it's always good to provide some information so that the dialogue is grounded in the reality of your particular situation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then after that,
I have another question.
One more question, Sue, sorry.
I have a question, this is Sue White, you can't see me, I'm over here.
I can hear you.
Yeah, right, you don't need to see me. Wondering about scribing it and how, will there be visuals, or will there be like, I am heard, I see what I've said, therefore I am heard kind of idea. Just toss it out. I know there's planning to be doing, but
Yeah.
with just a reaction.
I think that's great, and I think for those opening conversations, usually what I like to do is not scribe every word so that people are in conversation, but definitely by the end of it, capture the key themes so that people can say, these are the main ideas we talked about, and we can definitely capture those.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Then the next part will be a little.
Whoops, you're on.
Lost you there for a second.
Practices, some pitfalls to avoid. So I'll be sharing principles and best practices, pitfalls to avoid, and then we'll do some conversation so people can kind of react to what they've heard and ask questions. And I think in this I've left plenty of time here too, so I also wanna talk to you all about maybe incorporating some stuff in here around equity and inclusion and how to make sure that your efforts, reach as many people as possible. So that's a combination of presentation and reaction and conversation. Then lunch, and then after that, a brainstorming, and so this will definitely, we'll go back to the conversation that we had in the morning, and we'll look at some of the themes that were generated, and then we'll just give people a chance, probably in pairs or small groups, to really talk about what are the issues that people think are important that are facing the new district. And we'll do a brainstorming activity, and then we'll get everybody together and see what some themes are. And we'll probably do some priority setting too, so that you can walk away hopefully from this workshop with some ideas about what people think are important to talk about, important topics. And so there's two reasons that this is important. One is so that the board can get an idea from a more group of people, what people care about in the community. And also the board has topics that they have identified as being important, and it will just be helpful to know where those are on the radar of other folks. And then after that, the mapping activity, I see this as a very creative kind of arts-based activity where we divide people up either by towns or schools, and we can make that decision a little bit later, and where we're actually having people draw physical maps of the towns and the schools, and we're drawing restaurants or libraries or outdoor spaces where people hang out. We can add people on those maps with the person in town who knows everybody's business, and any clubs and organizations. And so we're gonna set that up so that at the end of the day, you all have some good information about what's happening all around the district. And also, I'm hoping that if there are students in the room, that they'll find that a good way to kind of share some of their knowledge too. And it's just a different way of generating information that'll hopefully be interesting to folks. Any questions about that before I keep going? So then after that, we would share a timeline, and we have a tentative timeline we've created with some different activities in it. So we would share that with folks and just give people a chance to comment on it and offer suggestions. And again, keeping in mind, having a diverse group of people in the room, we might write this timeline very large on a chart paper where people can actually draw on it and write comments on it and gather feedback that way. And then at the end, this is where we'll offer an invitation, and we'll have a bunch of different ways that people could stay involved. And between now and the workshop, I might suggest that we come up with a job description if people did want to be on the planning committee. So that's something that we can talk about, how often the planning committee might want to meet and things like that, so that they know what they're getting into. And then at the end, we would gather some feedback about the workshop and give people a chance to hear what's next.
One tiny thing,
Yeah,
should we call it a planning coalition so it's easy to distinguish from the
This
committee, the word committee is various committees, it would just may be easier, planning coalition or something like that.
Planning coalition, okay.
We talked about that
And-
last time, and it sounded good.
Also, you all might want to name it something. I know in Essex, they came up with Voices for Education. So that's something that I encourage you all, if you have creative naming people in the room, maybe to come up with a good name that would kind of explain what this is.
Well, and naming the group, and I also realize naming the effort, naming the work
Right.
also carries import to me.
Right.
So it could still be the planning commission coalition.
Coalition.
does the planning for the voices of education
Right,
or whatever the
exactly,
thing is,
right,
yeah. So
right.
that, then everyone's a part of the big thing,
Right.
and the people
The
who are
big
planners,
effort.
it's called
Yes,
planners, yeah.
yeah.
Just so it keeps it clear.
Yeah, yeah.
The other kind of question, or in that, this last way, this discuss ways to participate going forward, clearly, there's a bit of a vision around that. There'll be a brainstorm at this level, so that there's a sense of what the different jobs and ideas are, whether they're scribes or facilitators, or, and Sue, I'm imagining that you're in this training, in the training aspect of this, there'll be different roles that somehow are gonna be defined or illuminated to the people who are learning on this
Right.
day together.
Right. I have a list from some other communities that I'll share with you, and then you
Great.
can customize it for your community.
Cool.
So it just will give you some ideas about that.
Right, and well, and I'm imagining that some jobs might emerge out of this conversation, but I'm also imagining that you have a sense that there might be some jobs that we would want to emerge out of this gathering.
Right,
Or
right.
these
So I'll
efforts.
share with you some of my thoughts, and
Awesome.
then you can add to those, and one of the things about this work that's interesting is that we don't know exactly how it's going to unfold until we get into it and hear what people's priorities are and what they want to talk about. And different kind of topics may lend themselves to different kinds of strategies, and also the mapping that we do might suggest different strategies. So we have a basic framework, and as we go forward, we'll keep adjusting that based on what we're learning from the community, what we're hearing. Any other questions about the basic outline? So I'll be working, I guess, with Krista mostly, and whoever else is interested in fleshing this out. Folks are welcome to weigh in, and we'll just, flesh it out and share it with you, and then you can, if you have comments, you're welcome to weigh in.
I was trying to remember, we had a timeline for when we wanted to invite people. And then, did we also set a time to meet again before? I don't think we said that time, but I'm assuming we will get together one more time before the actual event.
Right, I didn't write all that down.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't remember us
We didn't
saying,
set one, but.
yeah, we didn't set one, we just
But
said,
that
we're gonna
makes-
have this one.
Yeah, we realized it was important to get together before the break,
Right,
so that stuff could happen
so we could send out our invites,
before the break.
but then we've still got a month and a half
Exactly.
before the actual event. Okay, so
So
it's,
we have a month,
Yeah. What's the date again?
the March
the
16th,
16th, and it's a month from next week. Right?
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
5
Yeah.
weeks.
But does that make sense to folks, that we would get together one more time before the actual workshop?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth asking Susan if she thinks we'll need that, or if she thinks that we won't need that, I don't know.
That, I didn't quite hear that.
I mean, we're just trying to figure out
Timing.
timing and how much more fine tuning of the actual event we would need to do. Is it important for us to get together again before the actual event? Or can we, if we're firming up this agenda now, the contact list now, and inviting people, and then asking folks to weigh in electronically on the agenda, do we need to meet again before the actual event?
I think it's more important to have a meeting scheduled for very soon after the event,
Yeah.
because you want to get that momentum and keep moving forward. So I think that would be important. If you can all meet again within a week after the workshop, that would be terrific.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we'll do that at the end of this meeting, is either set a date for after, or I'll commit to sending a doodle poll out to set a date for right after.
Yeah, and then in terms of leading up to the event, I think it seems to me that you can probably do what you need to do electronically.
Sue, did you want to say?
Well, I did, and I kind of feeling a little bit dumb, or did I miss something? Was there a Google spreadsheet that I was supposed to layer names into that I missed?
No, so we.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's attached to this agenda, and.
This
we-
agenda.
I'm sorry, no, the meeting agenda for tonight.
Oh, okay.
So Patrick will pull it up because we decided to work on that
Together.
as a group.
Great, sweet.
Yeah.
Because I was preparing for this and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So I have my list.
Yep.
Great.
So are we all good with that? Because I don't want to have a meeting for meeting's sake.
Right. It would probably just be,
Like
someone has to
logistics.
organize the space
Right.
and that kind of thing. That's
Right.
probably about all, you know.
Yeah, and so if people are comfortable with Sue and I kind of firming up details, and then maybe I could share those out with folks, and if there's like, can someone come early to help set up chairs, or can, you know, that would be great. We do have the elementary school of Bristol reserved, so that's set. So,
I mean, are we gonna communicate with this about the rest, we update the board?
yep,
And then also, I think I've been thinking about the childcare piece a lot, and that's
Yes.
gonna take some prep and thinking and work and hiring and safety and like a
Yep.
lot, there's a lot to that.
yep, yeah, I would love help with that if you're
Yeah.
interested
So we need
in
to
helping
like,
think about that, okay,
whether we do it electronically or we meet again, that's,
okay.
yep.
Awesome, thanks Liz. Yeah, because we did write down what we need to help people get there, and we talked about transportation, childcare, food. So yeah, that would be great to put some more thinking around that.
I'll focus on childcare.
Okay, that's awesome.
I can help with food.
Okay.
I know someone who could work for you.
Oh, yeah?
To have some at home, yes.
That's great.
Excellent workers.
And if there's a stipend for attending, there should be a stipend for caretaking,
Mm-hmm.
being a volunteer childcare, or I don't know.
The
that
paid
just-
childcare
Yeah, it
person.
wouldn't be volunteering work, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
It should have oversight though, it should have oversight by some adult.
So maybe what I can do,
qualified.
excuse me, is check in with Patrick and Karen around sort of what's typically happened or what the parameters are, and then
We'll go from there.
let you run with it. Okay. And check back in, that would be awesome. Same thing with food.
Perfect.
Transportation, I guess, is a little trickier. Have we ever done anything around helping folks get anywhere done to events that we've sponsored, or how we might?
Sometimes, like, you know, people might pick up a couple people kind of thing, but it's
Uh-huh.
very low key.
Yeah.
It might be, you know, somebody calls and says, I wanna come, but I
But I
can't get
just
there.
can't get there, and we
Right.
see if we can make that happen.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, if we had just like generated a list of like 6 of us who would be willing to pick, you know.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, and that could be part of the invitation.
right, if
Right,
you
you
need
can-
transportation,
yeah,
please
please
let
let
us
us
know. Okay. So does that kind of, is that what?
That's great,
So you-
that's great.
Okay. So I guess we can, so we have our contact list up. So for the folks that weren't at our last meeting, we tried to brainstorm different groups of folks that we think for whose voice is important to hear from, and we might not regularly see at different functions or events where we're seeking input. Students were one of those groups. And we talked about a bunch of different categories of folks, and then we were going to kind of assign ourselves to reach out to some people in those categories. And I think, Sue, did you want to go through that activity?
Sure.
Sort of
Yeah, I
practicing,
think
or
that
do we
would
want
set
to?
us up
Okay.
well for this. So
And I do have the slips of paper, but I need you to walk me through the instructions.
that's awesome, okay. So are there, do there happen to be an even number of people in the room.
4, 6, 8, 10. We're odd, but if Sean participates, we're
Sure.
even. So we're an even number.
Okay, great. So so the first step is for everybody to get up and find a partner. Wait, hold on. Let me do one thing first.
Okay.
If everybody has a pen, let's just have you do a little bit of writing for just a minute first.
Get pens and paper if you
There's
need.
a pen.
Does anybody need a pen or paper?
I need paper.
Paper?
Or you can use your
Here's a
laptop
piece of
if that's easier, but just
I've got
as a way to do something.
He'll need paper now, I gave her a piece of mine.
Does this cost the journalistic memory?
One of these days I have to get a tablet.
Well,
I am a rough.
Yeah.
You're really doing a lot of
Oh, okay.
being at all.
So-
Thank you, my dear.
Would you have
Yeah, I mean,
That's true.
no.
Yeah,
so it is.
Okay,
It's just
Yeah,
like,
I
you
looked
know,
it up.
you know,
Yeah,
I don't know, that's just
Okay.
so sure.
I was telling Bob.
so we're going to do, the purpose of this activity is to help all of you feel comfortable inviting people to this workshop, and also to help come up with some talking points for both personal invitations and also to kind of formulate an email or a flyer, those kinds of things, okay? And as you all talked about at the beginning, it's a little tricky what the purpose of all of this is. It's not like coming together to, organize a field trip or build a playground. Those things are very concrete. This is a little less concrete, so it takes a little practice. So before we do the moving around part of the activity, I just want you to write for a minute or two some of your thoughts about what you would say to somebody if you were going to invite them to come to this workshop.
Oh, I gave you a top pen. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So how's everybody doing? Do people need more time?
Maybe like 30 seconds more, 1 minute more.
Okay. Okay. So that was step one. This is a 3-step process. Okay, so for step 2, we're gonna ask everybody to pair up and find a partner. And we're gonna give you a chance to actually practice inviting somebody. And to make it interesting, Chris is gonna pass out some slips of paper. And so one of the pairs should get a slip of one slip of paper per pair. If there's not enough to go around, that's okay. But each slip of paper has a different person that you're going to be inviting. So it could be a student or an educator or someone who's a real champion for the schools or someone who's a critic of the schools. And so when every pair gets one slip of paper, the person holding the paper will be the person being invited and the other person will be doing the inviting, okay? And then we'll collect the papers and we'll switch them around and then the pairs will switch so then the other person can practice
With a different role.
with a different role,
Okay.
okay?
All right.
And so Krista, maybe you can be a timekeeper and give 3 minutes for the first person to do the inviting and then we'll switch and do another 3 minutes or so.
Okay. Okey doke. Do you guys
So should we
wanna?
just go down one? Right?
Yeah, we can do that meeting.
Are you Liz?
Yep, it has. Well, I definitely call it.
Oh, you're making groupings?
I am totally making the groups, I'm
Oh, I
just.
see.
I'm sorry you got me because
And
this
if
really
I
kind
invite you,
of
it's
is
just
sweet.
Yeah, somebody is like really curious about
I didn't know if
Oh, rolling through
Ah,
something to get it all.
No worries.
I roll you like. So how about on the way?
Okay, go ahead and start.
Okay, go ahead. I'll be the school chief.
Justin, I'm
I'm so excited about anything I get It's not a very hard person. Apparently. We're gonna have to get other students on board with you.
And we are.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wrote. I wrote down that our possible students.
It's come together in a way that we can build a system and work on a process and a system to engage people in the community, solve problems.
If you're like, you want to do something to help the school, they're gonna be like, yeah, they're gonna say yes no matter what.
I feel like we don't.
Every time I can say, well, why, why do you want students in addition to adults? What do I have then?
We're basically.
Your questions are good.
Well, because it's often used about students and learning and creating an environment where people want to create
Yes.
go on. And so I want to make sure that
Yeah,
our
because
system
I think it's
supports
really
that.
important with
And so
different
what better voice
council
than people who actually live it, wonderful fact. We're all on the outside, we have
Like not just regular students with different
yeah, so like
bars, you get
definitely
talk to her about this.
So
elementary.
You know, you can choose any level of.
Yeah, so you can, I know, I feel like.
Oh, right.
Oh, your groups.
That's, I feel like I would get
Yes.
wanting to go to it.
Yeah, and also I would imagine.
Right.
And
And
like
like
for
trainees
trainees,
do
we go out and engage.
similar issues that
Right,
are.
there are.
But yes, but I think that's a really important part.
Yeah, you guys help around so much in seventh grade, it's crazy.
Just from.
This district.
If you have students invited ones,
Communities that help them solve
Skills.
you know, larger
Okay, we got 10 seconds.
that's also the and right now in the BLI. So it's just a one-day trip, so
Embrace this.
I prepared my
Really
Right,
first
it's stuff that you can do.
Okay, I think that's our time.
I've literally done one thing.
So Sue, do we reflect it all, or do we just go on to the next one?
Do you wanna come to this?
Let's go on and then we'll reflect at the end.
Okay,
Love to see.
so
Do you want this back?
yeah, I've got a million papers here, so hopefully I'll try, I think I made 2 copies of it, so hopefully, yeah, why don't you call,
should we all pass them to the right or something like that? Or?
that's a great, thank you, Sally.
Two people
around the
to
block.
right.
You have done these paper pass before, okay, so you guys are.
Here you go, here's your stuff.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, no, just take the new,
Oh, we're supposed to just go
yeah,
on
we're
to the
gonna
right.
just take
Oh,
the
I
new
missed
one.
that. Oh, we're just gonna keep
Yeah,
the
so
new
you
one?
guys
Okay,
are that,
okay,
now
so
you're
this
that.
goes to you.
You're there.
We're at the school champion again.
You, no, you should be something different.
Yeah, we're.
Okay, so your school
Did that sort of work, does everybody have something different?
Yeah, we have something to
Okay.
that loves the school
Start.
or
Okay.
somebody that won
Okay.
basketball title?
Let's talk to
So,
Someone who is sophisticated.
You're a taxpayer that is really enthusiastic about the school.
No.
So,
Let me just read that.
I'm not really
I understand that you've done a lot of work for the school, you've been really involved, so.
One of the things that starting in
Spend some
July,
time across
so there's about getting all
been involved for a long time,
involved with school decisions that are happening, so it's not just one small group of people, it's
So,
we're getting input from all
I'm excited to invite you to this event, which is focused around getting more community engagement. And
perhaps you might be able to.
we're looking for
It's gonna be really an opportunity.
people who really want to be involved in the process, not so much
They're probably,
be the ones
I'll
who
be for it, they're all
be
excited.
involved in the process.
They're all
Actually becoming the expert listeners and reporters and advocates. You do so much for advocating.
When I heard you were
and also like,
We think it would be really great as a person. You could engage other folks. You're already engaged.
excited, I feel like you'd be really valuable to hear perspectives on what you think decisions should be going forward.
Is it going to
Figuring out how we can better engage.
I'm 10 years and I'm really tired.
Maybe a little bit different role for you. You already are engaged in thinking about how you can.
We have lots to talk about it. Our students are so excited to go see all that. And I think Nezin's sending over some people to
I think, yes,
I don't know who, do you know who his student is?
I'm that person. I've already done such amazing work. There's actually a slightly different role that.
Get air. I think that air and Grace Tables, like,
That we're inviting you to.
we can take one.
Because
And next time
sometimes
we'll see
it's not
what
the best thing.
we want to partner with Endeavor.
Right, single focus.
Then we have to actually like reach out to the organizations and get like praise.
Well, yeah, or because I'm a champion for something, I'm being positive, so I don't really need to listen to others. Some.
Wow, that may not be a bad example in starting that.
everyone will be
Yeah,
lost on
because
us.
I
It's
feel like
really
I'm
hard for
talking
any
about
people that
it.
work really hard.
Who are on
They have slightly narrow focus, because they were working so
Okay.
hard already.
We're at the 3-minute mark.
Because they really brought it
You have a
down
kid
to
already.
the day. That's great.
I have dozens.
I got more of a sense of what.
Okay, we're ready for step 3, I think.
Show you that.
Sue, are you there? Oh, she's gone to bed.
Are you there, Sue?
Sorry, guys, yes, I don't know why, but my internet keeps saying it's unstable, so forgive me.
We're all a little unstable. It's okay.
So, but it,
Gone again.
Nope.
We lost you again. I wonder if you could call in. Like on a landline or on a,
On a cell phone.
I can tell, I'm sorry, I paused, I can tell when it's not working, you guys are just sitting still, so I just paused.
oh, okay.
I
Keep moving.
I wanted to ask a couple of questions. So first of all, just what was that like for everyone?
It's a little tough to get going, for sure, because like you get asked a hard question and you have to sort of improv and figure out how to answer it properly to get them into it.
I found it really helpful when my partner asked, or started talking to me, you know, she had a whole different way of going about it, and which I found really helpful for me to focus more on what was going to happen at that workshop. Whereas when I first did it, I was talking about the overall, what we're trying to do at a big level. So it was interesting to see the two, and both were important, it seemed like, but, so anyway, it's helpful for me to see that.
Grain size is, I was thinking that same thing, so what's the grain size in the invitation? Recognizing that there is a big picture that this connects to, but also that it's the specifics that might offer someone an opportunity to see how their interests and passions might connect to the work and being engaged, so.
Great.
Oh, yeah, one of the things I think we realized was that you might finish up, or at some point, and Mary, I think you probably went right at it, is ask the person you're inviting if they have any questions or do they need any further information, so that the dialogue can develop as needed.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't do that at all. It was like 3 minutes of, and that's not good.
The dialogue was very specific to whatever tag role-playing you were given.
Uh-huh.
Parent and a faith leader, like that was a totally different target that we had to go for and
Yeah.
change the conversation entirely.
We also talked about the importance of letting them know what they'd be committed to, like, it's this one event, you're not obligated to something beyond this if you choose to attend this one event, but there are opportunities and different levels of engagement should you be interested after this event.
And that they would be part of developing what those things are, if they so choose.
Did anybody's partner just say something absolutely brilliant that you think the whole group should hear?
No. Here's $5. No, just kidding.
One of the biggest things I think that's helpful that Krista was saying was about that we have a facilitator. I think that's huge. I think you, Sue, are a really big part of this feeling trustworthy, people knowing their voices will be heard, and that something will look a little different than it usually does is just the fact that you are going to be helping us do this. So that's new, I think.
And it shows a genuine investment.
Yeah.
That is a great point.
Okay, so are you all ready for step 3?
Depends on what it is.
Okay, we'll let you say it and we can see it.
I will be.
So I think finally what we want to do is actually come up with a couple of talking points, not a ton, but enough so that you all have a foundation for making an invitation, an email invitation or a flyer, and also maybe a couple of specific points for those different people that you want to reach out to. And so what I think would be good is if you can all get into groups of maybe 3 and just spend a few minutes as a group coming up with maybe 3 or 4 talking points. 3 would be a good number. And this time, if you can write them down and maybe just write them very legibly so that Krista can collect them. And then we'll see if there's some overlap in the different groups. And hopefully we can land on a couple of key points that everybody wants to make.
So we can write on.
Alrighty.
How many slips of paper were there, Sue? How many different types of people or
Let's see.
how many
Let me look
hats
and
did you
see.
come up with?
There's educator, school critic, parent, faith leader, business person, school champion, and student.
There's 7.
Yep.
I lost track, yep. Great.
Did you have
And
senior,
if there, and
senior
you may,
citizen?
when you're talking in your small
We did
group, you may
not.
decide there's another group we didn't come up with that's very important that you wanna be able to speak directly to.
So 3 key talking points, that's what we're doing, Sue?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you want to, maybe you could also identify maybe 1 key talking point to a specific group that you think would be very compelling to that group. And maybe, Krista, maybe 10 minutes for this?
Okay.
So I don't see a critic.
School
Oh,
critic.
there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is, sorry, I couldn't see it.
Did
And,
anyone speak to that?
Maybe, I'll check in maybe 7 minutes and see how everybody's doing, if you need more time or if people are really quick. You don't have to take the whole 10 minutes.
Okay.
We're working together.
Okay, I do have that facility.
Okay.
Go on. Say
Right?
it.
So what do you think is
Any
important to me or say?
Yeah.
Something
All right.
I think it's important to say that
So it
it's
seems
not
like
a
you
full
really
commitment,
feel
but
like the
only
idea
a one-day
of
workshop.
facilitating
Because it might be a full
that was part of my.
So if
More
not,
than just
And
one
I
day.
realized I was
Yeah.
trying
Well, like the 5-town
Yeah,
forum
actually it was this morning,
was
that
really heavily populated.
they were looking at
Yeah.
us and
Because
looking
it
at
was
me
a
and
kind of
I gained my
town workshop. They were run by other
Okay.
people that are town members.
You can
see it.
that it was
Just as,
facilitated and,
uh,
The long-term
worried and
goal is part of that.
Sort of.
What is the end result?
Yeah.
So it's a one-day commitment, however, it is.
So you're
Ready to
by
go.
saying that it's the board running it,
We
it's gonna
were
be
just
down
saying
to the
that.
board
Sort of
meeting.
like-
So to
Right,
strengthen
well,
the
but that doesn't
I did
just
agree
it
with
makes
that.
tiers
I think it
of
was,
power, for sure.
yeah,
So
okay.
somebody's voice is higher
Building
up
trust.
than others.
Yes, that you can sort of engage.
A facilitator's fine,
Yeah.
because that's a voice that is
Trusting,
that's just
building.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like we were
So
inviting
maybe we
people to
focus on
actually
school critics then.
begin
To make
thinking
sure
about how
that
they
it
could
gets
really be involved in this
Reliable
process. So
fridge.
I think the workshop is one day, but I think that
well, it's funny you
we're
said that, Sean, too, because I was
actually making
thinking
a
about
much
like
bigger
my
commitment,
little
maybe over a period of a year.
you know, where
Until we get to the next bond.
Future
wants to make sure we have
And then ongoing.
input of the diverse people, but
For our future.
I didn't like saying the word
Work together.
because of
Yeah.
that
Rather than just sort of
feeling.
admire the
Um,
problem, be part of the
And yeah,
change
that's what's driving it,
and
but
help
I
design
don't know how
something
to.
that you think.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine for the
And
board
that's the
to
invitation
support
right there, it's
this.
inviting somebody to
And say,
come
like,
and
we
be
want
part
your
of something
input.
like.
Yeah.
But
Talking
we'll stay
about
out
it.
of it.
Cause it's
And
critical.
leave
In
it
theory, I
to
feel like
people
different
to
ways,
come up
something
with
that you
these
need
issues
to
that
also
need to be
use.
brought
Because
up.
that's-
It's like,
it's
to me, it's like their priorities
Yeah, it's kind of a
outside of
learning
the scope of
opportunity.
Because that was
of
being,
what we're
it's saying it's
generally
in the
doing.
district,
Like,
immediately I
just
was,
an area
as the parent was like,
saying
well,
it,
part
this
of
is
the
so
small town.
priority.
Like,
People
there's
really-
like
there's a way to
everything.
do that.
Yeah.
There's a way to get to that.
Well,
That's
yeah,
the voice.
what- where,
Exactly.
where do I
This is
actually
from
get
all
a say
aspects.
and make sure that my
And
town
for
is
me, I think of
a part of this?
maybe they're
Mhm.
focused on
Yeah.
or something like that. How does
Well, I
our
just
school
love the fact
is
that
I'm really
because
excited
of
about
the
this.
survey,
It's so
it's
cool
saying
that you
we're
guys
forward
are
on it.
doing
It's
this,
like
realizing,
Really good time
you know,
together.
supporting students.
So it's not
It's
essentially,
not thinking about how
it's
long
it's not inventing it.
So it's almost like they realize that
The other thing is what you
for
brought up
many
was.
years.
Well, we're actually going to kind of go beyond that and have
The
opportunities.
tide is changing,
Right.
enough people.
We want people to
in these positions that
I
are
like
wanting
the
to,
coalition idea too,
just
to
to
be
encourage
a
that.
frame, that sort of speaks to every voice.
Best
Yeah,
practices
just
for effective equitable.
Before, the only reason why I wasn't saying
figuring
it
out
to
how to
my,
help
with my
people
partner was because I remembered at our last
offer
meeting, Sue was talking
perspectives
about
and
being
ideas
positive,
about
but one of the things I've said to people is, you know,
breaking.
we're not doing it well as a school board, and we want to do it better,
Mhm.
and this is an
That's
opportunity.
skill we're really
Committed, and
Yeah.
we're
I
going
think
to
that's
help
pretty
us,
great.
and meetings
To stimulate some creativity.
So I wrote, it's a
Yeah.
facilitated
Yeah.
day,
Everything there.
be part of a community-wide coalition.
functioning
But then this piece about bring your voice to develop.
I like the bridge analogy
I think
too.
Sue means
And I
positive, it's not that we're in
This is
a
really
great
setting that
state,
framework
but
so that it'll
positive
always
in the
be
future
the goal,
that
yeah,
we're
exactly.
trying to get to,
Yeah.
like, see the issues that we have.
I think
real
that is for me the important message in that.
Yeah.
If you take it and you want to see the issues that you
Change is
have,
inevitable.
we might
We-
not
We were
be on
doing
the
it
same
with
level
our
right now. We
English
wanna get
together
there
Yeah,
so that everybody
we
is
had some
happy with
teachers,
the change
we
in the state
invited,
of.
you know, some board members.
Because if, you know, I think about,
And together,
Yeah.
looking together as
so whether it's the secretaries putting a single district which got a lot of attention.
One of the reasons
This
I thought
concept,
like
right?
this unified
Things that-
past is really because as
I
a
don't know
five
that I
towns, we
necessarily
already
agree with that
are friends with
concept,
everybody.
but
In the five
what
towns,
is-
we know everybody
Rather
from
than
the
just
five
let
towns.
change
The
in
kids
whatever
in
way
this
it
state are already at
Just be
such a young age.
Yeah.
It's when designers are, you know,
rather than just
Yeah.
subject to
because of that
That's the
distance.
ultimate
And we
Yeah.
empowerment.
should emphasize
Sort of
Yeah.
identifying, we're
Yeah.
identifying
Yeah.
topics,
Exactly.
ideas from all five
identifying
towns because
assets.
Probably
everybody
not
is
as
important.
certainly could be.
But the concept is there.
Yeah.
Better than having
And I
20.
actually.
And then we should have
think
meetings like this
This
because
is, it's all a
we
little
want
clunky.
all
It
five
needs to
towns
just
to
fit
keep
in.
meeting each other so that we know who our
Completely
neighbors are.
accessible to any.
Assets,
That's
assets and like stakeholders in the community.
You know, in
right?
fact, you know, it's clear to me that you're a very
Resources.
educated person in the way you
Stakeholders is a sort of clunky word though.
presentation.
only after kind of one meeting.
This,
then.
you know, I know exactly what you're talking about, but that doesn't
Only,
mean.
yeah, it's just
He's out there.
Well,
Although-
just explain what it is, this
Right.
idea.
So your cousin,
I can't even remember what you said, but it was lofty language as well as lofty vision,
Well, we,
which
I
I
mean, I
totally
think
appreciate.
we're gonna
So that might be another
Some
talking
people
point that
aren't necessary, that's another.
talk about what we think is
in a
important.
position to
Yeah.
have.
That's a little bit highfalutin for me.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's
Okay.
where the input
I do
would be
wonder
of people.
about
Mhm.
We're
a
gonna
Assets.
specific
identify
mention of the
topics.
what our
facilities,
assets are.
because
Mhm.
that has been the buzz for
Figure
years.
out how to.
And there are lots of people that feel strongly one way or the other.
But I can see.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity
Now into like the
to
type
connect to
of
that,
Regularly.
but also think
Yeah.
more broadly.
We're looking for people to
I-
identify.
To push back on that,
what it
I
is that
think, you
students
know,
would
it's
like
the
to
ultimate.
It would certainly pique their
Yeah.
interest, like you said.
Yeah.
The board has made a
We're
prediction
not
on what they think our issues are. We wanna know if it matches what what you think our issues are.
Oh, did I?
If they don't, we would like to hear your input on why it's not an issue.
And it's so true. I mean, I like the voice one too, but maybe like, I mean, the bridge
We might be able to go down it.
really
Then that's what they
makes
do.
sense.
But if we can invite.
Who knows? People
Yeah,
come
exactly.
when
You
they.
never know
What
until you
happens
hear.
is.
Or was those
Oh,
13
I-
people
I
plus
do.
the
I
5
would have
people that might
something
go
to
to
offer.
be there.
Right.
We'll go.
Or, yeah, I can go in
That
that.
Yeah.
one.
As soon as it's
Yeah.
mentioned, it's like, yeah, we
You
were.
know,
It's like
just
one of those
go
things
and go
on
here. I can help
But
the
identify.
boards and the psych boards
Is
and
there a
everything,
way?
they're always upset
Is
when
there a way?
something goes through and then finally
So
someone has
keep
an
our
issue
vision
and the
broad.
town gets in an uproar. And
So
it's like,
that
we want
a
to
bond
hear this
Before,
uproar.
right.
So what
How
about
it happened,
specific
so we're telling you what we're going for,
Uh-huh.
please
That
tell us
classic
now
communication,
if
whether it's your
you're.
marriage or, yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Communication before it blows.
What do you think
Yeah.
would be a particularly good
Yeah.
point
That
for a
was the beauty
student
of our very first
to
one,
get them to come?
where it, I mean, it was right, you know, it was after.
It's hard to
And-
say, because I think people come from so many different,
You mean all students have the same?
And, in our planning.
Like in
so I mean, it could be different for everyone. For me, I just wanted to be involved
Yeah.
in our
And
community.
that's really give
So,
concrete
I
examples.
think,
You know what I mean?
So you could maybe,
It's really hard
Maybe
because
somebody
everyone
hosted
comes
a
from different
gathering, or maybe
backgrounds.
you were
But
someone who's.
what would help you
sent an
feel like,
email out
oh,
to all
this is
people
really
that
an
you knew,
opportunity
you
for
wanna
me to
host
get
a thing,
involved in a way.
Like just giving, if you can give
And
some of
maybe
those
by
ideas.
Whether it's a
So,
video
yeah,
or
I
a
just
picture.
thought
I could
that
Yes, I think it's
maybe
like
chat
or
and
it could be
talk.
done.
Okay.
St.
St.
John's where they
Possible.
go.
That's where they're going. That's their nickname for him.
Students meet all the time.
Not
Yeah,
making the
yeah.
decision as a group, but like
Which is
having
what-
my
and I know.
voice and having them consider
I know.
it, right?
We're
I'm
learning
always
other
disappointed when
things.
yeah, they're gonna, because their Muppets are not,
And if we can
I
find a
mean,
way
it's
to
like,
get that
they're
process
actually quite
out,
small,
what you're saying,
right?
make it work.
It's a name that implies a large Muppet.
Not so.
Decisions that really impact you.
Yeah.
People
I
have
remember
everything,
that.
right?
I was
I mean, the
disappointed
point of
about
everyone,
that.
but students.
Already, we have a
It
really
was
rich,
good, but-
vibrant community.
I think about
Where a
all those
lot
different
is
groups that
national.
exist
It's just
right
not
now,
necessarily
wherever they meet.
connected
Your day-to-day
to
life.
Yes.
but there's an
But
impact
to
on it.
bring them all
Right.
into toward a
What
common
happens
vision
with
and
those? Like those
everybody's
things are already
thoughts and
already rich and
passions.
vibrant, we just look to like.
What I love
connect
is
that
that
and-
when
Right,
Oh, yeah,
we
right.
we have so many
different
strong
visuals.
assets.
Is
Just
that
to recognize
different?
that.
No,
We're
like-
flag
Yeah,
Yeah,
community,
yeah.
we're not engaged, right, because we are.
Yeah.
People
You know,
on
you
there.
know, our
Yes.
time is entirely different than
Yes.
what people at school
Everybody
kids are
goes to the
thinking
football
about.
games.
But we're not getting
basketball
school.
games.
Five-town education bridge.
So maybe.
Yeah.
So this is Sue chiming in, just giving you a little, I think it's about, you have a
Right,
couple
yeah.
minutes
Band
left, so if you
concerts in the
haven't
summer.
written down your talking points, it's probably a good time to start doing that.
Don't forget there's snacks too over here. Please help yourself, I'm gonna go get some plates.
Great snacks.
Krista, she does it all. Does she bring all the treats too?
We gotta tell the community that Chris is gonna be there. And everyone-
Right, exactly.
Talking point number one.
Krista's gonna be there.
I'll bring snacks. The Italian is in the house.
Wait, when did you graduate?
07. 12 years. Oh, I.
Yeah, you did. Shape.
Got really quiet, are we all done?
Oh, I.
We're thinking about our overall name.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
we
weren't
started-
done
Oh,
to
whoa,
maybe.
nice one.
Wow.
Oh, we have to
That was that
we have-
fast.
we have
Well,
to
I
name
don't think we
Five-town
need-
bridge?
I don't think we need,
Okay.
that's my
Keep it
gut.
open. Don't have
Call
a
it
name.
the forum.
That we're creating the coalition
Chant,
together.
sounds too similar.
And that it could be, and hopefully a name will, I mean, if you've got an amazing name, I might be completely
No.
convinced. But that concept
It'll
of
come
we're
out.
building, we're birthing this together.
Yeah, so it'll come out.
And that maybe a name is part of a student group that happens
Yeah.
that day, or,
Yeah.
I don't know.
When it arises, we'll know.
I don't know. But we talked about the idea of clear messaging that's gonna have a broad appeal. And I can see where it could easily go to a name, when you start thinking about what that might look like.
Right.
Having a name
Yeah.
could easily be something you could kind of perseverate on. Some messaging.
This is Sue chiming in. I'm just wondering if maybe we could go around and every group could share at least one of their talking points and then kind of pass those along to Krista.
Sean,
What? I didn't write any. You guys wrote it down.
Do you guys want to go first, Sue and Patrick and Liz?
Sure. So we came up with 3 talking points that we thought would be important. We thought to make reference to the fact that it's facilitated would be an important talking point, because that, again, that speaks to the investment and the sort of quality of the experience that they're gonna have. Also talking about this idea that, the reality that change is happening, and so we have an opportunity here to be the architects of that change, and to do so with intentionality and compassion, and so to seize that opportunity. So that we were thinking about the critic, because that seemed like the one sort of perspective that wasn't addressed in our sort of breakout groups, and that's something that might resonate with a critic, that they get to be part of something, creating something different if they're not happy with what the current reality is. And then this idea about that it's about being part of a community-wide coalition, and that not only can we be the architects of what our change will be, but we also get to design the way we want to engage the community to do that work.
Great.
Awesome.
I assume you're collecting these and putting it on one list. Is that the plan?
Well, one of our initial points was the fact that a facilitator is going to be there as a neutral party and not as an opinionated party, which got to the point of making sure that this felt very equal for all voices that were going to be there. Especially for changing things, it's very good for somebody to not feel powerless when they're there. And we went even further on the fact of some towns might really feel that they are smaller than the other towns and not getting their opinions in on it, because it's more than just Mount Abe. It's all the schools that are here, and we want all the voices and all the issues that are going on with them. And we brought up the point too on the fact of the board supporting it, but not being the overarching opinion of everything that is happening for this. And that we were talking even on the possibility of the board bringing what they predict to being issues and inviting people like, well, do these match up with what you feel is right in your issues that you have? And if it's not, then we would really want to hear that, because if we go ahead and start solving these issues that you don't find are issues, then there's going to be an issue at the end.
You better be there.
Yeah, sure. So our 3 ones, we first focused on this idea of sharing the long-term goal, and then we came up with this idea of building this trusted, reliable bridge between community and schools. Like, that is one of the big goals of this work, to work on being able to address future need as well. We also wanted to make sure that this is an opportunity for getting diverse views in the community, so hearing all avenues and all perspectives. And then we also thought it was important to describe the day and the expectations of the day, so people understand specifically what they're signing up for the workshop versus commitments down the road.
Thank you.
We thought it was important to stress that this was we were inviting people into a learning process that involved listening and stimulating creativity, inviting equitable engagement, so it was a learning process. And also that we were looking for diverse help in identifying assets, so thought about what people could come to this and say, well, yeah, I know about some really great assets that that I could share, and you might have a different perspective than another person. And Bella, maybe you want to share the one about, we wrote a specific talking point, or if you were talking to a student.
It was a 1-day commitment, so if you wanted to only go to see what it was about and make further decisions about joining.
And could you tell this one down here that you told us?
Be involved in decision making. Because it's important for students, because it's a part of our day-to-day lives.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I'll take that.
Well, and that invitation to student is gonna need to include the stipend book, right?
Food will get students.
Might not want to start out with it first.
Yeah.
Great. That's a great job. I really liked what I heard, and I especially loved the idea of building a trusted and reliable bridge between the communities and the schools. That was awesome. I loved that a couple of people in a few different ways talked about the diversity of opinion, and that's something that people like hearing too sometimes. Hey, this is a chance for students and educators and parents and community members to hear from each other. So that was great. I really liked what was said about for students and everybody saying, you get to come and learn together and check this thing out, and then you can decide if you want to continue to be involved. And for everybody, free food, you're gonna get some food, you're gonna get a meal, that's always helpful. And yes, for students, the stipends is helpful. And I'll just say one more thing about the students. In my experience, students really love being part of these processes because they're there as an equal. And it's a rare time when they're not there as the recipient of a teacher's lesson, but they're really there contributing on equal footing with everybody else, and it's a really great experience, so.
Awesome.
So great job on that. There were 2 reasons for that activity. One, to just gather together some good talking points, and you hit a home run on that. And then the other one too is that sometimes it's just really hard to get out there and make invitations. So getting to practice with each other can help you be more likely to follow through on your invitation. So thank you for doing that activity.
And I will share back out those themes for everybody so that you have them when you invite folks. You can kind of choose from the parts that feel best suited to the audience or to you. So should we try to tackle the invite list?
Sure. I'll just pass it back to you, Krista, because I think from here on out, you know what needs to happen, but I'll stay on the line and listen in.
Okay. So, and I think maybe you can help a little with this part, Dawn. I don't know if Jen Stanley spoke to you about just the sharing and the editing and all of that stuff. So do you want to say anything about that piece as it pertains to some of the open meeting law stuff that we just, as a school board committee, need to be mindful of?
Right. So Jen initially said that it was going to be just compiling this list.
Yep.
And it sounded in the beginning like it was for the purpose of organizing a meeting, and it sounded to me in that vein that it was safe territory. But then as she explained it a little more, I was a little reluctant, and I actually encouraged her to call the VSBA because it may just be in a gray area that they don't consider prepping for a meeting, because you can have back and forth if you're planning a meeting kind of thing, but this sounds like a little bit more, so I would be really cautious.
So working together right now, we can do this.
Right, but
And then anything outside of that.
it should I wouldn't do it unless you check with VSBA, because you may be violating some open meeting laws.
And for those folks that don't know, they want to make sure that everything that happens in a publicly elected body is transparent to all members of the public, and so we just have to be careful about electronic communication and how available it is for everybody to see.
And they tend to have you err on the side of caution.
Very cautious. But I wondered if we worked on this now, and then if people had additions to make to that, can they be sent to me individually?
Yes.
And then I can tweak the whole document?
Yes.
Okay. And can the link to the document still, the live version still live in our agenda and all that?
I think so, but again, I would go to call Emily at the VSBA just to be sure.
Okay.
And you might not want it to be live.
It could be live, but you could change it to
Not
view only.
editable.
View only,
View only,
right,
okay.
yes, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, so
How do you wanna do this?
the other, right. And I also wondered about the, I think Jen had made a comment to me about whether there was a concern around putting people's first and last names.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we wanna talk about that a little bit.
Well, who sees this contact list?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right now.
realistically.
Does it really
Oh,
make?
camera.
Oh, good point.
Everybody.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Millions
Why are
and
we
millions.
sharing
Why don't
this?
we wait until we get yeses and then we
Viewership
put
is
them on?
huge.
Yeah.
So I think I might be remembering wrong, but I think that we were trying to find a way to capture all the different constituents,
Yes.
Yeah,
groups,
diversity.
and then how we would target those folks. So sort of assigning us to
Accountability. Yeah, that's
to
gonna
you know
happen.
inviting different folks in those groups. So maybe that's the name.
Yeah.
that we
Farming.
really need, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at your headings here. I would really err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
I mean,
here.
I'm
I
not-
think
Yeah,
maybe what you
totally.
do is set up some parameters.
Yeah.
Like we'd like to have
Yeah,
two
yeah.
from, two senior citizens
Yeah.
or two
Faith.
Yeah.
two families with small children. From each person, I think I'd stick more to that broad range.
Yeah, that looks
Yep.
good, and then we can choose, okay, I'll take those three, or something.
Or should we all just try and do all 6 categories?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah.
7, like then it's not like, then we're not, why don't we all just, we should all be able to reach out to
Uh-huh.
this entire list of it.
I guess
guess-
then the trouble is then, how do we know what we've done so far?
Right.
If we can't do the back and
And
forth
that's where I
on
think
it.
we were trying to go with
Right.
this, and
Yeah.
I think Jen put all kinds of stuff on there that, and we can take it off or keep it on, but I think, she was just trying to capture what we talked about, but yeah, it's the idea of knowing, are we hitting all our targets, or are we still gonna end up with the same people we always do?
I think all we would need is, just a list, and then you could just put a check by perhaps if you believe that you've invited that
Yes.
perspective.
Oh,
And then you're
that's a good idea.
responsible for that.
That's
That's a
good.
good
Sorry,
idea.
what'd you say? I was looking at the wrong ones. Sorry.
If it was just a list of the perspectives you might be looking for, and then you could just put a check or something next to it if you believe that you had found somebody that would represent that. Because then also somebody, I was thinking about it, and I don't think there's a way that I could invite somebody based on either their income level or their race, and then I certainly wouldn't want to put them on a list as being
That.
Identified in that way.
outside of that.
That's who they are.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely
Very
not,
bad
right,
in a lot
so
of
putting a
ways.
check mark and just saying,
Just a
I
check,
think I've got
like,
someone for
that
this,
fits that.
this category,
Yeah,
great.
and we can
And we should
still
just-
include it, but not.
Yeah. Yeah, just so we have an idea if we've gotten the broad and what we might need to look for, who's not on there yet, without any names, just check marks, that sounds great.
Unless we're all thinking of the same person.
I know.
Well, that's,
Well,
but it's after we found out if we have them. So if they've already said yes to you, they're not gonna do it to someone else too.
They might help.
What if we had sort of general constituent groups we wanna connect with, and a number that we'd like to, shoot for is one thing. And then what if we had a separate thing that was like RSVPs? And so when people said they were coming, we put them on the list, and we could look at our wish list, and if somebody has already been,
But then it's categorizing them in a public way.
no, 2 separate documents. But if
Don't
we
they
were
both
saying,
have to be
like, see,
public?
to address the whole thing of like, no, we wouldn't even categorize that RSVP list at all. But if you guys were thinking of the same person, for whatever reason,
You'd see the name on
you
the
would
list.
know they've already been invited.
Same way
Yeah,
that
wouldn't you
there's
be
a
able to
list
just
for.
I think-
have them
Five
answer me
ton
like,
form.
hey, so-and-so already invited me, I will see you there.
Yeah,
And, oh, okay, great, end of conversation.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
Like a contact email
Yeah.
list, like the one we had from the last forum too. We had a whole list of names
Yeah.
of people that attended. That kind of a thing. And then we can shoot out the emails the day before to make sure everybody's reminded and do all of that follow-up.
I have another idea. It might be really cumbersome, but to put it all down there and then erase it all. So that we know what we're talking about. I mean, it's this whole idea of that Kristen and I might think of the same people and that we're gonna not waste, but that we're gonna do duplicative work around making these invitations. To me, like if I'm gonna say Mike Fisher, and you're gonna say Mike Fisher, it would be nice to know that here, and then one of us can call Mike Fisher. But then we can just erase that part and I just have my name. Is that redundant? Or is it, would be on the record?
Still be recorded.
Erasing is the part that I don't know.
Nothing gets erased.
Or you just-
how about with
It's
those of
forever.
us who have ideas, we just say to Krista what our ideas are, and she'll be able to tell if they're redundant or not, and then she'll let you know, oh yeah, that one's already been said.
Okay.
Handwrite a list.
Then share traffic, then you're like switchboard. which is-
Well, or you get someone else to be
Right.
switchboard.
Right.
Maybe I'm the switchboard or something.
I know, that
I'm
was
not
what
even
Jen
on the
was
thing.
trying to decide with this thing.
So, back years ago, what we did was, when we had the forums to start policy governance, we divided up by towns, and then we took the list, and there were 5 of us in Moncton, and we took the list, and you got this page, you had 10 people on that page. You got that page, and you just had sections of the alphabet that you had to go down. And I mean, the only thing we said to each other is, don't just invite people you know, reach out to somebody you don't know, kind of thing. But if you did it by the alphabet, then nobody's duplicating their work because you got different people. Are all the towns represented here at the table?
If you
We've got
include
some
a couple
overkill of them.
of people that aren't here, we've got Moncton, New Haven.
Nancy
Lincoln,
was
Starksboro,
Caleb.
Bristol, Lincoln.
You could just divide up the alphabet at each town, and then nobody would overlap.
Or the people within your town, you know who knows your people, so like, so
could we
Kristen's
talk
like,
within
hey,
our little
don't,
town
who are you inviting,
clusters?
you know, like.
As long as you're not board members. That was the other thing
Yeah,
that we
we're not
talked
gonna
about
be a
when
quorum
Jen
if we're
was.
just a couple people in a town, we're not
Yeah.
a quorum, so.
I like that idea, except it'd be more natural for me to invite the people that I know.
Right.
And if like they're not in the list that I got, it's like, okay, you know, then it just seems,
Yeah,
you know.
I think, yeah.
But can we just communicate with the people that we probably overlap with?
So maybe just like Sue and Kristen would have to check in with each other.
Well, my list has people all over the district.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, what do we think about just, trying to brainstorm our own group, doing the best we can to hit as many of these categories as we think we personally can hit? And maybe then, I mean, I'm happy to hear back from folks, okay, here's the areas that I think I've covered, and here's the number of people. And maybe then if we felt like, wow, our numbers are low in this category, I could do a shout out to folks to say, we're really lacking, it seems, I don't know.
I think if we reach out in this first week or so, we'll have an idea if we've got some people or not. And then we can, well, I guess, I was gonna say then we can say who we have committed, but then it's still back to the same problem, but.
I mean, I think what we're dealing with is an ethical dilemma, right?
Yes.
So I think if we're gonna complete anything like this, we should only be putting things down here that we'd be comfortable saying to that person. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
like if we feel like there's a particular, if people of color are underrepresented, and that's what we decide, and then we say, okay, well, let's seek somebody who is a person of color, to say to that person, we'd love for you to come because we don't have enough people of color in
We
our
can
group.
check you off.
If you're prepared to say that to that person, and that's the reason why you're inviting them, fair enough, I guess we can put it on here. But unless you're willing to say that to the person, that that's the reason they're getting the invitation, then I think we have an ethical problem here.
Yeah.
And same thing, like to say, you seem like someone who cares most about taxes. I would have a hard time saying to somebody, I'd like you to join us because you care more about taxes than anything else. Or you seem to be a critic of the school, why don't you
And it's pushing us into these identities categories.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to do that. We're trying to engage us as
Yeah.
whole people. Right?
So maybe we just try to do the best we can to cover the bases and not talk about it too much.
Yeah, exactly. I think we should all just be mindful of getting diverse opinions,
Right.
right?
And then
not be, you know.
And everyone
wacky about it.
is critical in some regards, but supportive in others. So to
Right.
say you're all of one or all of the others is probably a rare circumstance.
Right.
Probably
So
there are a lot of
this-
people that are interested in all of those in different ways.
That's right.
So this is Sue, this is a great discussion, and I have a suggestion, a proposal. What if, so the idea here, right, is to keep in mind, you don't wanna just write down 5 names of your 5 best friends from town that you think will show up. So just having those categories as a point of conversation just helps you think in a more expansive way about people in your town or in your school or fellow students that may have a range of different perspectives and interests. And so keeping that in mind, I wonder what would happen if everybody around the table made a list of 5 to 10 individuals that you personally have a personal relationship with, because I do think it is important to invite people that you have a connection with. So I agree with someone said something about that. So what if everybody just writes down that list of 5 to 10 individual people, and then hopefully Krista can use some of your talking points to come up with a suggested email invitation so that you can make a phone, send an email and make a phone call, reach out a couple of different ways to each of those people on your list.
Sounds good.
I like that. What do other people think?
Yes.
Well, I think, I agree, but on the other hand, we had also said that we wanted Patrick to invite all of his leaders, all of his administrative leaders.
Well, I
And
think,
then we talked to, Elizabeth was gonna speak with the Anita leadership, and I think we had pigeonholed some of our invitational
yep.
stuff as well,
Sounds cool.
which maybe isn't fair. I mean, Patrick might have other people he wants to invite.
We can invite lots
Yeah,
of
invite
people.
more.
There's
More the merrier.
no-
Well, that's right, I mean, my list has 17 on it.
Yeah.
And also, we should talk about that, we don't wanna have significant representation from one group and very small representation from another group. So I think there could be the potential if Patrick is inviting administrators that they're going to feel like they have to attend, perhaps. So we have to figure out how that would look and what the role there would be, and would they be coming as a community member or representative of their school and a community member, and who's best positioned to invite them, because there's,
Or do they get more than one invitation?
I mean, they really know what's going on in their community, I would think. Maybe. It would just be a really.
And I do think part of what we're talking about here is sort of the future of our education. And I think to have a strong representation of our educational leaders is really important. Their job is, my job is to be looking at what is the horizon looking like in education in our region, in the state, nationally, like to have some of that ability to forecast a little bit. And then sort of filter that with community perspective, I think is important. And if we're looking at 40 people, if, a third to 20% of them are educators that have that perspective, that doesn't seem overrepresented to me.
I think I agree, Patrick, that it's very important to have those folks in the room, because one of the things we wanna make sure is that whatever input is being gathered is connected to decision-making. And so if this is completely a community process and you don't have people in the system there, that makes that line harder to continue. At the same time, when we think about issues of equity and power, so in this conversation about education, people in the system have the most power. And you wanna make sure that people with the least power are overrepresented. So, for example, students should be a significant proportion of people in the room. And I think, maybe 10% educators might be a more balanced number. Patrick, as long as you think that's enough people so that people in your system know that this is happening. And if you had 40 people and 10 people were, school leaders, and a combination of school leaders and teachers or school staff, I think that would be a really nice representation and leave plenty of space for students and community members and other folks. So I don't know, Patrick, how that sounds to you.
No, I think that's exactly what I was thinking, 10 people out of 40 is that 25% representation that I think could work. I'm thinking about, if that is a combination of leaders and teachers, it's a handful of each then, which I think is okay. I don't think it has to be the entire administrative team. I think our administrative team is about half resident and building leader. So it might be the residents that are building leaders that are the ones we're looking to have at the table, because they can wear both hats, and even just from a logistical standpoint, they're not traveling from another community to come to the events and be part of that work. So yeah.
And I think in that 10 people, Patrick, it may also be really wonderful if you had a couple of staff that aren't teachers, or maybe people who have served lunch for many years in the system, or have other jobs where they're really familiar with the system but have a very different perspective because of their role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, just having gone through a similar process for creating the strategic planning process, it becomes difficult to get the broad representation you want and keep the numbers to the size that you're looking for, because there are a lot of different perspectives you can. So if we think about food service, custodial staff, administrative staff, educational assistants, classroom teachers, building level leaders, you can get sort of one of each and you're at 10.
Right.
Yeah.
We should make sure we do have that large number at the eventual things, but maybe at the workshop, it's not as important to have 150 people, But we do want that 500 people to come, or maybe not 500, but a lot.
Yeah, to be interested in the work.
Yeah.
Because even if this first workshop does have 40 people in attendance, and that's great, probably the intent is not for 40 people to be leaders of the work.
Right.
Because that feels like it's a hard group at that size to be nimble and action oriented.
Yeah.
I don't know what the eventual size of the group we're looking for.
It's really great, though, that there are so many people that then could reach out and pull people in. So it would be good to have like 40 people, and then they each ask 10 people.
Plugging into different levels of
So that might be their
action.
part of the thing, is just to invite 10 people, not to necessarily be part of the.
And
Part of the planning.
Yeah.
so you had said that you could, if we ended up getting more, that it wasn't too much of an issue on your end, right? It was, because we were still gonna put out that we were doing this, and some people may just show up, because we wanted everybody to know that we were doing it. So we'll over-prepare, so there may be more than we think.
Yeah.
But like you also said, is nobody's gonna just come all day for something that they're not committed to and just happen to be interested in. People will.
Right.
Right?
I mean, I think 40 is a nice number. If it gets, I think having RSVPs is really helpful, because it's good to have a sense. And if it gets, really big, then, I may need to get some help from some of you, and we may have to split the group up in a few cases, and I might need to have one of you give me a little time so we can prepare to have a couple of co-facilitators help with some pieces of it, but I think we can manage that. I think that would be a good problem to have. And I think if you think of all the people that come as ambassadors for the work, and then some people will join the planning team and some people will help in a bunch of different ways.
So it sounds like right now we've got a plan to write down our list of 5 to 10 people that we're personally connected to, that we think represent a diverse viewpoint, and go out and invite those folks and get RSVPs back. Before we do that, I'll share out the key talking points and maybe even try to craft it into an email if that's helpful, that you could send, and with the idea that we'd also make phone call invites. And just thinking about our timeline, we talked about trying to get those invitations out, I think it was by Friday the 15th of February, so that it was before the break. So does that seem reasonable to folks? So we've got, about 10 days to come up with our list and to reach out to people. And then I guess maybe we would want to hear back March 1st-ish, which would be 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
I'm just like throwing dates out based on what the calendar looks like, but,
And a week after the break.
right.
It'd be 2 weeks from
So they
the
get
invite.
invited before, the Friday
Yep.
before the break would happen, and then at the end of the week after the break.
Yep. I think that makes sense.
Okay, does that sound good to everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then, in the meantime, I'll also do a doodle poll so we can find a time to get together soon after the workshop. And if it's okay with folks, I'll connect with Sue on more specifics around the agenda if we feel like we're in pretty good shape. And I'll ask folks to get back to me when they hear from people that they've invited. So if we hear by the 1st and we're looking low in numbers or, themes of people or whatnot, we still have 2 weeks to reach out to more people.
And then I would say if it's possible, when people hear from folks that they're interested, it would be good if they can share with you, Krista, contact information, because it will be helpful to send out a little confirmation email with details of the day.
Okay.
So, and I also, in addition to Patrick reaching out to school leaders and school staff, it does seem like reaching out to students is something that would be helpful to come from principals or guidance counselors or people in the system.
Yeah, can I
Of
take a
course.
minute, Sue, to ask? We've got a student and a teacher representing the community council at the high school. And so maybe, do you guys have any thoughts to interject at this point about what you think would work for reaching students?
We were just thinking about that too, about how we can get a diverse range of students to this meeting, to
Yeah.
this workshop, because I think it's really important for students to realize that there is this opportunity to be heard and that their voices are welcome and they are going to be treated as equals in coming to this workshop. What are you looking for numbers for students? I think we would be glad at community council to facilitate the process of recruiting students to come to this workshop from the high school and the middle school. But I think getting a sense from the school board what you're looking for in terms of the amount of students, that would be helpful.
I mean, it sounds like if we were thinking 10% educators and heavy on the student side, I mean, we'd be looking at a dozen maybe, or I don't know. Sue, does that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Dozen students.
And what age group? Because
A lot.
seniors might not be as kind of
Available.
Invested.
available or invested because
Yeah.
they're going to college soon. It
Right.
might be more younger than ninth graders.
I think
would be
7, I think it would be great to have 7 through 11 at least. And I don't know if we want to get also younger I don't know if it would be appropriate to have 6th graders come or something like that, but I mean, we can certainly, I know at our community council meeting, we had come up with a few ideas of maybe putting this into our circle discussion as an opportunity for students to just first learn about, and then maybe having some sort of process, having them write a letter to say that they're interested in joining, or I don't even know how we would go about that, but maybe that's something we can talk about at our next.
That was another thing on
community council
families. Would it be kind of what is it?
Family friendly?
Yeah, yes, like
Yeah.
we would want to approve like and actually get more families that have young elementary school kids that are coming into Mountie that are going to be around for 7 to 8
Yeah.
years.
Definitely,
Yeah.
young
Yeah.
families, definitely.
Yeah.
So is there a number that's too large for this first meeting? I'm starting to get a sense of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're at
We-
20 something with just
Students and
students and
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah.
Yep. I think, I mean, we talked about this before, it's challenging because, 25 or 30 people is just such a nice number, right? But what we had talked about the last time is really wanting to make sure there's a couple of people from each of the towns. That felt really important, that all the towns are represented. And I think that's how we got to 40 right away, right? Which if we had a couple people from each of the towns and then students and then some school board members and then school folks, we got to this idea of 40 people. I think we'll make it work, as long as the space can accommodate more people than that, then we'll find a way to make it work. And as I said, I might have to ask some folks around this table, and I think there's people around this table tonight who would be wonderful facilitators to just help if we had to do some breakout groups. So what I would say is you just don't want to, at the beginning of this process, exclude people who are interested. And what I would also say is that asking people to come for a full day on Saturday is a big ask. And so I think meeting the goal of 40 people might be challenging, and so I don't know if I know that's not a great.
It's like the wedding
answer,
invite
but-
list, like, plan for 10% that don't show.
18 list.
18 is the magic number.
So Patrick, was that helpful at all, or was that just not specific enough?
No, basically what I heard was you're not concerned about the number of people. That
Right,
there
we'll
isn't
make it
there
work.
isn't too many. I am curious how many, regardless of how many show up that day, do you have a sense of what size you're looking for the leadership group that would sort of be born out of this day to be?
Right. Yeah, so I think there should be a coalition and a steering committee, and the steering committee most likely are the people sitting around this table with maybe a couple of other folks, but I think the steering committee has to stay pretty small. I think the coalition could be up to 30 people, and the steering committee would be a subgroup of that's really in charge with the nuts and bolts of implementation, and then the broader coalition could be there to weigh in at certain decision points and to meet.
Oh, you could see her go away. You
Lots.
could just hear it go away.
If I know I just went out there for a minute. So the idea of if you have this workshop and maybe one or two people say, we want to join the coalition, then I don't think you necessarily need a smaller steering committee. But if at the end of the workshop, there's a ton of enthusiasm and a lot of people want to join, then I think we could have a way to have a smaller steering committee that's, like 8 to 12 people, and then a larger coalition that can also continue to be kept in the loop and have an active role.
I have one question about the people you invite. Patrick, are they people who live in the 5-town area?
That's what I just sort of compiled a list, went right to of the entire administrative staff who are administrators and live in one of the 5 towns.
Perfect, that seems good.
And that was 7, and counting me. So
That's all.
So I want to be really respectful of people's time. Just like a thumbs up if you feel like you have what you need for our next steps. Awesome. No, Patrick, what do you
I'm
got?
just curious around the support staff and teachers. Am I inviting those? I heard mention of Elizabeth reaching out to some teachers, so happy to do it either way, just wasn't sure
Okay,
what my responsibility was.
what if I check in with her?
And then just let me know?
Yep.
Perfect, okay.
And as far as students go, I mean, I went really broad in my net, and I have students on it, I have teachers on it, I have support staff on it.
Mhm.
And I guess it isn't a bad thing if people get 2 invitations.
Take
And
5 minutes,
is
that'd be
important.
sweet.
Two's better than
Just take a
none.
look
Yeah.
at 7 and see if you crossed over.
Or it'd be, I mean, it would be nice to hear from 2 people that you want.
Just
look at his right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I put Aaron on it.
So
So
are we
we're gonna-
sending you, to clarify, are we sending you the names once they've said yes?
After you hear
and
back,
contact information?
yes, let me know names and contact info.
Yeses, for yeses.
Okay,
Yeah.
for yeses.
Yes.
All right, if there's no,
Actually,
oh, go ahead.
Krista, it might be good, when you do the invitation, to put your contact info so that they can just RSVP directly to you.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. All right, thank you so much, everybody. I'm so excited about this process, and all of your investment and commitment is awesome. And thank you, Sue. I hope you guys feel better in your house soon.
Thank you so much, and thank you all. I know that was a little awkward and annoying, and I really appreciate you being accommodating, so we
No,
can.
I'm so glad it worked.
Worked out great.
Technology can be good sometimes.
Yeah, well done.
All right, I'm gonna close, I'll take a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
And a second? Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Sue.